live at 7 p.m. now. Reruns are still every Tuesday. Today we have Screaming Fire. Behind that name is partly women are supposed to scream fire instead of rape because nobody's going to save you when you're raped. And it's the double standards in life that no one cares about what happens to women, and we have to fight for our own selves nowadays. I've got some awesome women here to talk about current events that we have going on with women's issues. I want to talk about the Equal Pay Act of 1963, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Act that Obama passed in 2009, and then the march that we have this Saturday in Washington, D.C. My name is Bobby Gilbert. This is Oh Say Can You See? To my immediate left, we have Lily Beardsley. And on her other side, we have Martha Cooper. And on the very end, we have Ann Schweitzer.
Or not.
Anyway, I'm going to ask each of these women what they think equal rights for women is to them.
Value.
And we'll watch a couple roll-ins. But mostly what brings this to mind for me is that women are almost treated second class still in 2017. And it's starting to get frustrating. Even today, when a couple gets married, everyone's always going to the woman, when are you going to have a kid? Are you guys going to have kids? And are you going to work when you have kids? And what does that have to do with the woman's responsibility? Isn't it parents, family, that each spouse should take care of the family equally? Back in the 1950s, that was the common thing, but and that's still nice if that's what people want to do, but it's still expected even now today. And women are expected to change for their husbands. They go to work every day, and the woman goes to work every day, but she still has to come home and cook dinner and take care of the kids, and then look physically fit like a supermodel, and otherwise, why is the husband wasting his time with a boring wife? It gets frustrating to know that there's double standards, that husband can put on a few pounds and it's okay, but if a woman does, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you so lazy? It's been years now that women have been fighting for equal rights, and now they're with the possible repealing of the Affordable Care Act, women are now going to be losing their rights to birth control and other very much needed health services, mammograms and other things like that are specifically for women that they need to help their healthy life and whatnot. Does anybody have a quick comment first?
No, I don't have any comments, but I know what you're talking about. I met a woman who worked in a doctor's office for 10 years, and she never had health insurance, and she actually died of cancer because the doctors wouldn't take an X-ray. When she went to the emergency room, they finally took an X-ray, found out she had holes in her bones.
Yeah, the irony of it. She worked in a doctor's office and couldn't get health care.
Well, I've seen that. In fact, one of the places that I get the most politically agitated is being anywhere near our medical system, and it's not even humane. I was listening to what you were talking about, and from my perspective of my age, and when I was a teenager, there was the women's movement, and so I kind of got a little bit of just life perspective. And I remember them talking about stereotypes about women, like you were talking about, it's okay if a man doesn't look like he walked off of a magazine, but there's a lot of cultural pressure. And that really hasn't changed all that much. Young women, especially high school age, are hoping some guy likes them instead of picking the guy and saying, do I like? And it's kind of a mind shift that still needs work. There's been some work. There's a lot of people out there now that the father says, I'm as valuable to this child as my wife is. And they've started to be more, involved in different areas. But when we talk about what's going on with the medical, we don't really have medical parity. Women have more healthcare needs and different varied needs. We don't all go to Planned Parenthood to get these needs met. Some of us go to clinics and some of us have private doctors. And that's what I want, is for people to have those choices or access. Because I too have seen people, a man, doesn't matter if it's women with breast cancer or a man that couldn't go to the doctor because he's only got so much income to live on and his copay is going to jack up and it's going to mess up your month. So you don't go to the doctor until you're too sick and you die.
Yep.
And so people do die from the way our government is administering things like the healthcare system. But I keep thinking, why is it that we, in 2016, or 17, sorry, just trying to catch up, why is it that we don't have, the Equal Rights Amendment so that we can say that women's care should not cost more, that women, of course, should make an equal wage. I mean, anything that has to do with a lot of the issues that we're fighting one on another, access to care, even if that care might look like an abortion. We don't know, and it's not our job to be judging each other about how and why we make our medical choices.
Correct.
Like if somebody's going to have, I'm going to be a man, but I really need for my mental health to change into a woman, that person should be able to,
It's
but as
between
soon
that
as we
person
have
and
a
their
profit
doctor.
thing going on, then it's always a struggle about, and women usually wind up with the short end of the stick. So there's not a lot of research, for instance, on issues, medical issues that women have. And women have had to fight for that, for money to fund studies about breast cancer, or, this has been on our politics even. And now it's back in our politics, and you have people that want to control our morality, okay, rather than support healthcare and daycare and the things that keep women and families strong.
Correct. And especially the equal pay. I mean, if a woman is trying to pay for daycare and healthcare for not only herself but her child.
Yeah, they have families too. It's not
Correct.
just a man that takes care of his family. Now it's women that take care of their family. So
I have a roll-in that I want to play. It's the third one on the list. It starts out looking like a news program. It's about health, taking your infants to work. If that's ready, I would like to roll that now.
Oh. So, well, if you're lucky, you can take your infant to work, right?
Correct, yeah. No, most people can't. This is a new thing that the governor's office passed, that he's allowing women to bring their newborn to work up until they're 6 months old. And, because the baby sleeps 20 hours a day anyway, but then the mom can be right there one-on-one attention without having to pay that, $5 an hour to the daycare worker. Yeah.
I always liked that idea. It was a good idea.
I
And
think
it's
so
like,
too.
if you have babies, all you got to do is set up a couple cribs and chairs or, bouncy things or
Yeah,
whatever.
a
they
little
have.
Doubled as
bouncy thing after
daycare.
the-
The
then,
government
that's
making
gonna
it possible
depend
for
a
more
lot.
families
Yes,
and
already.
babies tonight. NLE
Yeah.
ABC 15's Kim Tobin has the exclusive interview.
This looks like your regular government state office, but a little different. You have your stroller parked outside, and come on inside with me. We'll show you what's a little different here.
Can you hear
Mom
through the
is working
headphones?
away, and her baby is right next to her the whole day. Shannon Whitaker found out she was pregnant with little Remington the day she accepted this job. You can see he's healthy and he's happy. Remy is one of 5 babies currently at the Department of Health Services. Under the government's program, he can tag along until he's 6 months old.
He comes with me every day. We're slowly getting into daycare. So the transition has been nice knowing that I can bring him here if I need to.
Some state employees have been doing this for years, and now Governor Ducey is rolling out the program to others.
This guy is sturdy. It increases productivity. We're less likely to have a state employee leaving the employment of the state, and we have a lot of happy babies.
The expansion will start with the Department of Economic Security and Water Resources and could catch on from there. But what's the thought beyond the parents' cubicles?
Our parents are very respectful. In fact, they're more concerned about the baby crying and making noise than anybody else is.
Do people come by your desk a lot more now?
Yes. Anytime anyone has a break, they know to come to my office and play with Caitlin.
Dad Kevin Watanabe has been taking his little girl since she was a month and a half.
Bringing her into work has been a great opportunity for us to bond and just spend time together, just the two of us.
There's great civility, respect, and I think it makes people even more kind to each other.
Reporting in Phoenix, Kim Tobin, ABC 15.
Yeah, that might be hard to do like at a factory. But
Sure.
if you work in an office, it would.
Certainly. I think it's a wonderful option. I mean, I really do. I feel like the world needs to make room for babies. Really.
Yeah, and all
if you're
children.
I remember going to college, and one of my friends was nursing her baby, and that baby was on her.
Yeah.
And just a part of her
That-
everywhere she
yeah,
went.
that's one of the things I was gonna say. Isn't it great that they can just breastfeed? I remember when my best friend actually, when she had her children, she was back to work within a couple of weeks. But every break and everything, she had to go to the bathroom and pump breast milk, and it was just humiliating almost because she would have to sit in the stall her entire break. She had no time to eat or anything because all she was doing was, pumping breast milk for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then she had to go right back to work.
I figure people that have a problem with that, that can just be their problem.
Agreed.
I mean, and when women finally just go, oh, gee, that's your problem, and go on about their business, it's just it's like, be powerful about it, sisters, I mean,
Right.
really, just kind of.
It's
but
kind
I-
of our
but I
job to
also-
normalize it.
Right, exactly. I also think that there are a lot of occupations where a woman would be sitting here listening to this going, oh, yeah. I mean, people that have quotas on their job,
Sure.
okay, and their baby wakes up. That's, there are employers where you got to punch in, and they don't call you in work until you're actually at your desk and have all your stuff out. I mean, it's just ridiculous how people are actually working. There's all this productivity stuff going on where every single bit of work they could get squeezed out of you.
Absolutely.
At the time you're there, sorry, you can't have overtime, but you're going to have to do 2 people's work in the same amount of time.
If you look
It doesn't
at
lend to babies at work. Yeah.
if you look at this has horrible feedback. If you look at the graphs of productivity along with graphs of how much people are getting paid, it's not even close. Worker productivity has gone up steadily since the country has started, but wages stay stagnant, and it's ridiculous. If you're working, they always say that, well, it's your own fault. You got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but we are working harder. We're just not getting paid anymore.
Yep, that's right. And I mean, that's an issue that women face too. And then there's always the fun, new, modern way of single parenthood, or who takes time off of work to go tend to their child at school, or the things that you have to do when our culture is with capitalism. We are not about children and women and families.
No,
It doesn't
not
lend
currently.
itself, frankly, to stability in relationships. If you can't have a stability in your job and you're not making enough money to do anything more than just hang on, well then, I mean, who's getting strong? I mean,
No, you're just getting weaker because you're getting beat down.
right.
You
And
have no rest, no break, that all you have time to do is work and think about how you're gonna get to work and what you can do with your children so you can go to work. How, can I get my car fixed so I can go to work? I can't make it to I can't go to a doctor's appointment because I'll miss work, but I'm sick and I can't go to work. I mean, it's just,
I know.
catch-22.
If there was people in other countries watching us right now, like they would say, "What the hell are you talking about?"
If you're sick, take the time off, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking Canada and these other countries get 9 months maternity leave,
Yep.
paid maternity leave.
I had a friend, he told me he had 3 children, and he was from Germany, and he was saying, in Germany, for 3 kids, we might pay $90 for the month, and that's mostly just to help with food. And it blew me away. I'm like, right now, in fact, I was talking with a woman last night online, and she looked up to see what daycare costs for a week, 40 hours. $200.
Oh, that's cheap.
That's
And
cheap.
I was thinking to myself, well, that's probably all of her pay. Never mind, 30% is what they figure you should pay for rent. But even now we're not. We're
No,
paying
not in
well
Grand
over.
Rapids.
Exactly. Well, so why? How do they expect people to work?
And then people complain that they have to get assistance from the government, and then there's rules and regulations on that.
Well, and even if you do get, then there's always the new cultural thing of let's look down on the poor if you're middle class, which, you know,
Is
like
disappearing.
get a job. Well, you're like, why? You know, it's just really feeling like everybody's getting squeezed, and women get squeezed first. And frankly, you know, it's almost like I look and I go, wow, first the blacks take a hit, then the women take a hit. I mean, or people of color. And right now, I think everyone is feeling threatened because when they say we don't have money, we have a deficit, it's coming off of the people. It's not coming off of the war machine.
No.
It's not coming off with the new pipelines. You know, it's just ridiculous. So.
What's not coming up with it?
Well, I'm just saying that the Republicans tend to cut programs and, you know, not fund things like daycare, education. These things take a hit.
Over 50% of our discretionary budget is it's put towards our military.
Yeah.
But our military is the biggest in the whole world by a long shot. And all the people who are closest behind us, most of them are our allies.
So I'm just saying we've got priorities here, you know?
Right.
I mean, we could slice that off to say 40%, and that's ridiculous. But for crying out loud, that's a lot of money we could be putting towards social programs that make our country and the people in this country stronger, the families in this country stronger, instead of the government stronger.
Correct.
And I mean, I almost feel a little like, no wonder people are so alarmed. It is 2017.
Well, that brings up, you know, our new Secretary of Education. You know, look what she's done to Grand Rapids Public Schools. They're practically
Detroit.
non-existent. And same with Detroit.
Oh,
They had different issues that, you know, more like population decreases, but Grand Rapids population has not decreased, but we don't have any public schools anymore.
I have to go to a charter school even though I don't want to, because if I wanted to go to a public school, I would have to take at least 2 buses and wake up at least 2 hours earlier, and I already wake up at 6.
Yeah, she would have to be on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning just to get to school on time.
And there's also, I raised a kid that was attention deficit, and that was back in the day when that special ed mandate was unfunded.
Right.
So, okay, so they had to fight for that. And then I just think, well, charter schools get to pick who they're going to educate. They're not going to pick the expensive kids.
No.
So if you start what happens is they've been attacking workers and unions, and now that you're taking more money out of public schools for people that have to go to a charter school or want to, then you've got weak schools that you're leaving at-risk kids in.
Absolutely. And so that makes them struggle more.
That's right. What happens is they end up closing that schools, then the kids have to pick schools that are further away. Then, you know, that takes money out of the school system.
Well, and then we've also have parents that have to somehow make it work and work too. I mean, a lot of people say, well, you could take the bus. And I'm like, try to take a bus and pick up your kid from daycare and get them over here and work.
Exactly.
And you're like, what?
You know, here's daycare, here's work.
Like, we
you know,
live in
here's where you
reality land.
Especially the buses in Grand Rapids that run once in half an hour during the day and once an hour at night.
and don't stay up late enough to pick people. Don't go, if they went even 1 hour longer, there are a lot of second shift jobs that people can't get back from.
Yep.
So for crying out loud, it's like we need to start looking at what are the priorities and challenging. You know, there's a mass movement of women on the mall, and we need to hopefully be building coalitions and stay active, and maybe stop asking for equal pay and start asking for the Equal Rights Amendment, because that will cover a lot. I mean, I remember back in the day, my mother, they wanted, what was it, Title IX, where they had to spend as much money on sports for girls as they did.
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
another frustrating thing.
So we have taken these things on issue by issue, and we will have to build coalition and, you know, and to keep on pressuring. And I mean, that's what I see, is because we're not, and also working on the local level is so critical.
Agreed, yes.
You know, find out what we can do on the local level for even if it's low-income daycare.
Right, I know none of us really like Donald Trump, but if you just sit around and complain about the president all day long, you're going to completely miss all your local issues, all your local representatives, something you can change. Sitting around and complaining about how you don't like the president isn't going to do anything. But maybe if you work out and be an activist in your own community, you'll actually get the changes you're looking for. It's way easier to change, to change locally. You can get together with a small group of people locally and change small government way easier than you will ever change anything big government.
Bottom up, build.
I agree with that. That's so
building blocks.
true.
Yeah.
But then also, I think if there's no public schools, if Betsy DeVos is successful in closing down all the public schools, you know.
Well,
Yeah,
that's, you have to build
I've-
with the children. The children are, you know, our future, for lack of a better term, but, you know, they're the ones that are going to be leading us in the future. I mean, when we're in a nursing home, what do we want our leaders to be like? So if they don't have any school to go to now, what are these people going to be doing for us in the future?
But that's going to happen, and we're not allowed to complain about the president or
No.
Betsy DeVos or.
Well, too bad on that. That's just going to happen, because I just don't see, Americans really don't have shut up in them. We don't know how to not have freedom of speech, and we're going to fight for it.
We better.
On both ends.
Okay.
You know, I believe, really, there are certain things, but I think that they've wanted to do away, Republicans, for a long time. They want things to go back to the states. So they want the education parts to go back to the states. Although I believe that, in my own thing, is that we have a lot of power and more money available through federal, deciding, of course, on these priorities, whether it's going to be military or schools or what. But I know they've been wanting to do away with, and ran on, let's do away with the education department, wasn't it? The environment department. I mean, there's all these things, you know, that we really need as a nation.
He
and
said
they want to
Department
do
of
with all-
Environmental.
Right?
Department of Environmental.
Okay, you remember, right.
Which doesn't
See,
exist.
I have faulty memory. I'm older than you. But anyway, so there are certain things they want to do without, so that brings us back to the Department of Education as one of them, and who better suited than Betsy DeVos?
Right, disgusting.
I mean, you know, I've watched just a sprinkle here and there of her confirmation hearings, you know, and she doesn't know the difference between, you know, the testing and the and progress. So it's like there's debates that have been in education that she can't have because she really doesn't know that.
She's never
only
been in public
No,
schools
never
that-
for
yeah.
She
public.
doesn't even believe in public schools.
Correct.
No.
They
She
have
wants to be the last Department of Education.
Charter, and here's the thing, that charter schools aren't doing any better or any
No.
worse than the public schools, and the teachers, because they have no incentive to stay, because they get no pay raises, of course, the capitalists are gonna cheat them out. They're gonna move around from school to
So
school
they
to
have
school.
crappy teachers and they don't stay
All the
very long. They
teachers-
get low pay.
All the teachers at my charter school, they're all brand new, straight out of school, or still in school, and almost always leave within a year. So you're always the teacher's
Turnover.
training class.
Wow.
Yep,
You're-
turnover. It's like any other business. If I can get a cheaper worker, I'm going to do it.
That's what they've been
Because they're
doing.
after, okay, so just like, it's privatize, 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 all dang day long. So here they go, privatizing in our local area. The buses used to be a system that was run by the school system, and they had responsibilities and insurance and all of this stuff. Well, insurance, gets jacked, and I mean, who knows why they raise insurance? Because they can.
Right.
Okay, right, car or otherwise.
Yep.
So they privatized all the buses and sold all their buses very cheap to this Dean Transportation, who's now said you can keep your job, except that instead of decent with a decent wage with a pension, now you get no health care and $10 an hour.
You start at
kind of
bottom
money.
seniority too,
Right.
no matter how long you worked at the public schools.
And when they're running the economy off the roof, who's going to say, all right, never mind? I mean, they're holding us economic hostage, is how I'm feeling. It's
Yeah.
like 30 years, I've seen one at least every 10 years, where people moved all around the United States to deal with it. So that's not exactly giving a family stability. A mom who has all of the responsibility and all of the hats to wear has a lot less options. Okay, really, in this, day and age, I was a single parent. I couldn't just pick up and move out of Michigan.
No.
All right, I had to have family support for my child too, not just me.
Yep.
And we've got to start.
That's how almost all single mothers are making it now. Their grandmas, the children's great grandparents, are cheap or if not free daycare. If you have more than one kid, you can't afford to work.
Right, you can't, a lot of people are like, well, you just need to move around to find a better job if you say that there's no jobs that fit what I need in this area. Well, I need to stay here because I can't get a job if I don't have my parents to look after my kid.
And what the heck, who needs grandparents? They can live in California. I mean, we're just looking at hello, these things really have an effect on our people.
Well, and you can't just get up and move anyway. You need your first month's rent and your
You know?
deposit, and you need a moving truck. That's not going to be cheap, and
You have to find your kid a new school.
the new school and all that kind of stuff that you have to find right away, daycare right away. If you're just going to move to find a new job, right? You
but-
can't just pick up and do it anyway.
Yeah, if
so
you're
I've-
already in debt, it's impossible for you to move somewhere else for a new job. You don't have the money for it.
Yeah, the kind thing would be to think that they live in a bubble and just don't understand.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
easy way to put it.
It is.
An
I'd
ivory
I'd rather be kind and not think that they're very mean people. But I'm really feeling like, wow, how do we tell them? How do we communicate? And then how do we hold them accountable? I know that we have to start showing up as a group. I know that just been noticing, and it doesn't always happen, and maybe it won't. But, when we all stand up together, okay, when we show that we have solidarity, when they tried to tear down the ethics committee first day in, and they had everybody and their brother calling and screaming and yelling, probably even on their own side, they backed out of it. I don't know what's going to happen, whether we can ever count on that, but I know that we just have to get politically, see how politics is coming down into our own lives.
I heard somebody today who said all you got to do is give yourself a commitment to make 5 phone calls a day.
Yeah.
It could be to both senators, to your rep, or maybe somebody in your state. I know that you can even call Republicans in other states. There was the Tennessee senator, what's his name? Lamar Alexander is the one who would really like to confirm Betsy Voss. So if you look it up and call him, flood him, tell him why it's a bad idea.
And see, that's why I say
it's really easy to ignore just a couple of people, but when you hear an overwhelming amount of people saying, no, don't do this, especially in your own state, your own constituents, saying, no, don't do this, we're going to be very upset if you do this, that makes them worried about their job, their re-election, which they're going to be way more worried about that than whatever reason that they wanted to get that person in
Yeah,
the first
I mean,
place.
we have to make them, frankly, terrified of us.
Well, they
Because
should
right now,
be.
we're terrified of them, man.
They're supposed to serve the public. We more or less should be their boss.
Right,
If
exactly.
anything, they should be
Answering to us.
right.
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody that this is a live show, and you can call us with your questions or comments, 616-459-4881. I want to hear maybe your personal experiences with discrimination for being a woman. If it was low pay, you couldn't find the mental or the health services that you needed, or daycare, or if you just weren't hired because you were of birthing age and your boss says, well, you might have a kid soon, so we can't deal with that time off. I would like to go into another one of my roll-ins right now. This one is Lily Ledbetter. She is the one that wanted to, or was the preemptive to get Obama to sign the Equal Pay Act for women, which actually JFK signed in 1963, but we had to do it again because no one was following through with it.
Is this something we had to do over and over, like the Voting Rights Act? They have to keep coming back and saying,
Correct.
yes, it's still needed?
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the Equal Pay Act of 1963, almost 45 years previous, and then
45 years.
it took, and then we had to pass another one in 2009, but we're still not getting paid equal pay for equal work. If that's ready, I'd like to roll that now.
70-some cents on the dollar, or is it
78 last I saw, yeah.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lily Ledbetter, and I'm here tonight to say what a difference 4 years make. Some of you may know my story, how for 19 years I worked as a manager at a tire plant in Alabama. And some of you may have lived a similar story. After nearly 2 decades of hard, proud work, I found out that I was making significantly less money than the men who were doing the same work as me. I went home, talked to my husband, and we decided to fight. We decided to fight for our family and for your family too. We sought justice because equal pay for equal work is an American value. That fight took me 10 years. It took me all the way to the Supreme Court. And in a 5-4 decision, they stood on the side of those who shortchanged my pay, my overtime, and my retirement just because I'm a woman. The Supreme Court told me that I should have filed a complaint within 6 months of the company's first decision to pay me less, even though I didn't know about it for decades. And if we hadn't elected President Barack Obama, the Supreme Court's wrong-headed interpretation would have been the law of the land. And that would have been the end of my story. But with President Obama on our side, even though I lost before the Supreme Court, the first bill that President Obama signed into law was the Lily Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. I think it says something. It says something about his priorities, that the first bill he would put his name on has my name on it too. As he said that day, with me by his side, making our economy work means making sure it works for everybody. The president signed the bill for his grandmother, whose dreams hit the glass ceiling, and for his daughters, so that theirs never will. Because of his leadership, women who faced pay discrimination like I did now can get their day in court. That was the first step, but it can't be the last, because women still earn just 77 cents for every dollar men make. Those pennies add up to real money. It's real money for the little things like being able to take your kids to the movies, and for the big things like sending them to college. It's paying your rent this month and the mortgage in the future. It's having savings for the bill you didn't expect and savings for the dignified retirement you have earned. Maybe 23 cents doesn't sound like a lot to someone with a Swiss bank account, a Cayman Island investments, an IRA worth tens of millions of dollars. But Governor Romney, when we lose 23 cents every hour, every day, every paycheck, every job over the entire lives, we lose just cannot be measured in dollars. 3 years ago, the House passed the Paycheck Fairness Act to level the playing field for women in America. The Senate Republicans blocked it. Mitt Romney won't even say if he supports it. President Obama does. In the end, I didn't get a dime of money. I was shortchanged. But this fight became bigger than Lily Ledbetter. Today, it's about my daughter. It's about my granddaughter. It's about women and men. It's about families. It's about equal. It's about equality and justice. This cause, which bears my name, is bigger than me. It's as big as all of you. Which began as my own is now our fight. A fight for the fundamental American values that make our country great. And with President Barack Obama, we're going to win. Thank you very much, and God bless America.
That's part of what set it off. Even when you account for women having shorter experience because they've had to start their career later, and when you take into account the time that they take off to raise their children, they were still getting paid less than men proportionately. I mean, people were saying that they were getting paid less because they were starting their careers later or because they take too much time off for their family and home life, but even when you account for that, women still got paid less. This is in one of my economy classes that I took a couple years ago, and the teacher was just adamant. He says even when you take into account the time they take off and subtract those hours, and if you were to put in that time, the same exact job, they're not getting paid as much. A lot of companies will hire female lawyers because they're just as qualified, but they don't have to pay them as much. They don't expect as much, and that's part of our problem right now is we're being oppressed and we don't even know it because we're like, oh, well, maybe I'm not as good as that other guy because he's got more experience. No, it's not.
That seems to me to be buying into the whole idea of, well, I can't hire you because you're a woman and you probably have a kid. Mm-hmm. That's like, where is that thinking? Yes, people do have children. I mean, that's like capitalism speak. The only thing you're good for is...
You can't tell a prospective employee that, that's actually illegal to tell a...
Well, of course, it's
illegal.
illegal.
The thing is that part of the issue is that they expect that you're going to have a kid. Why is it my responsibility that I have to take time out of my career to have a child? Just because I can doesn't mean that I want to or that I'm going to.
Well, of course they expect that, and I would expect that of you. Who wouldn't expect that? But you also should get maternity leave that is subsidized.
And shouldn't really the father have some time?
Right, they're just as important to the child.
Exactly, the child's kind of thinking that way, but nobody's interviewing them. I just look at it and go, well, we've got this idea. They all look at us like, how many dollars can we make off of you? If you're going to take 2 bathroom breaks to the other guy's 1, I'll take the guy with the 1 bathroom break or whatever. It's like, come on. The reason what they've got going on now is like this idea that we live to work, that we don't work to live. that we need communities and we need families, and that's why we work, so we can go home, do our laundry, feed our family, and this is like not, and I kind of feel like we've got to, like I said, keep on the pressure to say, to say that, well, even with all of these things that we take off because we're women and we're expected to be the one that is, doing the diapers and the daycare and all of this kind of stuff, and, we should still get paid the same. We still have the same responsibility of raising that child,
Hi.
It gets frustrating as well, like, because the man should have time off too, but, where was I going? It's your fault.
What did they say that even in Libya, like from the government, they give you $10,000 to have a kid? So,
Germany, I heard there's something along the lines of at least at that time. I don't know if it's this way now, but there was a stipend for a woman that stayed home with her children. They didn't need as many work as they needed more kids at that time. So
one of the things that I think we have issues with, not just women's rights, but equal a decent wage at all for anybody, male, female, whatever.
Right.
Part of that is, a lot of things are automated nowadays, and I've done this on other shows before, talked about how we should make it better, equalize all the work. There are people that are working 3 or 4 jobs because they want to have a big fancy car and all that kind of stuff, but then they're bitching about the people that aren't working, but they can't get a job when there's one person who has 3 jobs. And so if we shared that all, and maybe everyone worked maybe 30 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, split the jobs up more so that the money was dispersed more, then the economy would boost very much so, because each household needs the same amount of stuff. But if one household is hoarding all the money and only buying 1 washing machine instead of those 3 jobs going to 3 households so that 3 washing machines can be sold, it's just perfect common sense that if there's more money spread out to more people, then they're going to buy more things. When all the money goes into one spot.
Having multiple jobs is bad for the economy.
Correct.
They say that it's bad for the economy, and that's true. But if you're working multiple jobs to pay 1 rent and your daycare and all your bills, then you need to work 2 jobs. You're not doing it because you like flat screen TVs and want to go to the movies 5 times a week.
Well,
Okay, really, it's kind of like, so what happens then is there aren't enough jobs, and that's just what's happening. And they really, I'm feeling like, man, they don't care how many of us drop off the cliff. Just drop off the cliff.
If we had a minimum wage of $15 an hour, we could work 1 job.
Right.
If we had a minimum wage that was $20 an hour, we could have a full work week of 30, 32 hours a
I
week.
just have to say, because I was sort of looking into the $15 minimum wage to see if we could agitate for that around here, even locally, and I ran into a roadblock. Roadblock is kind of like the ban of plastic bags.
Right, which is ridiculous.
So what they did, they had the legislature, was they passed a law that no city in Michigan can raise the wage. It has to be done on a state level.
I meant to look that up too. That's
so
obnoxious.
if you go and you raise the wage all over, but it doesn't work in smaller cities or something where housing is cheap, and do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But if you're living in a place like Grand Rapids, where we are rapidly seeing a lot more income inequality, as richer people are moving to the area, that changes your median income.
There's no reason why they can't make it a living wage based on where you live. There's no reason we can't scale it down smaller to something more manageable, because people who live in Grand Rapids have a way different amount of money that they need to have to live than someone who lives up in Newaygo.
Right. Yeah.
So you're saying
Sand
the
Lake.
cost of living here in Grand Rapids is lower or
Higher, way higher.
Higher than
And it
up there?
varies.
Rents are about $200 more now, or more than that even, than they were a couple years ago. So that's like huge.
Well,
If
we
they
pay more
raised
for
your rent
housing.
$100
They pay
every
more
month.
for transportation and food.
Oh, sure.
But But yeah,
There's
it's
really-
not equal though. We
Yeah.
pay way much more in housing. You can get a cottage on a lake for $500 a month up in Newego,
And
where
you can
you're not
also-
going to get anything here like that.
And you can also grow a lot of your food.
Yes,
And
you have
things like that.
space.
So there are different expenses. I almost feel like the smartest way to do the raising of the wage is to start in cities like ours, medium growing cities, okay, where there are plenty of jobs. When you do it there and it starts working, it works its way out, and then who knows what the terrain will look like in the state, okay? I just look at it like, how much money was this government? Remember when the economy had crashed, everybody's on unemployment, and they kept extending it?
Oh, right.
They kept extending it because they didn't want, like, Ma Bell and the gas company to go under. And that money was stimulating the economy because people had it to spend.
Correct.
And it didn't cost crises that cost twice as much for anybody to bail people out. So they kept doing that. And I'm going, if they would just allow for a wage increase instead.
So, am I understand this right? Like the cities like Seattle and San Francisco who raised their minimum wage in the city to $15 an hour. We in Michigan, cities in Michigan cannot do that because there is a state
Law that the Republicans, when they have the legislature,
Which they've had for
they
40 plus years
pass
in
laws
Michigan.
to keep us from passing this or that law. Just like they passed recently the ban,
Of
a
banning
law
bags.
to banning plastic bags. So I'm just using that as an example
Okay.
of how much in trouble we are when you've got that kind of privatization. And it really will take us staying organized, keep building coalition. When they had the march downtown,
That doesn't seem like a really smart thing though, because young people are going to move to those places where the wage is higher.
brain drain.
Brain drain.
We wind up with a brain drain, meaning if our place is dull and wages are low and there's nothing going on and there's no opportunity, the kid that got an education carries their education out of the state.
Gary,
Dull,
a
it's
phone
dull
call?
here. Brain drain
Gary on the
happening in
phone, do you
Michigan.
have a
Yeah.
question or comment?
People that get
have a call.
educations leave for finer territories.
We have bad feedback. We can't hear the caller.
Is it Gary? She said it was Gary.
I don't know, we can't hear anyone.
They didn't do a phone check before.
Can we turn the caller up, please?
We can't hear them.
Hi, caller. Can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can't hear the caller out here.
It's just really a stupid thing.
This happens every time.
Can you hear you?
I don't understand why that problem that you say
This happens every single time.
has been going on.
Just a reminder, everybody, it is a live call-in show. We're waiting for our callers to come in through right now, 459-4881.
This goes on.
We need an economy that's going to work for everyone, equal pay for equal work, and it doesn't matter if they're male or female, or if they're colored, or any different race, if you want to go there. But it gets frustrating when, and it's not just, it's like some women get paid higher for certain jobs as well than men should do. But it should be that they get equal amounts for equal work all the way around. It's the only really way that the economy can work, if it's fair. Otherwise, like you said, if there's one city that's paying $15 minimum wage and everybody wants to move there, then it really doesn't bust up the city, because that's what they were looking for. This $15 an hour will boost the economy. More people have more money to spend. More people will move in. More people to spend money. That's kind of how the economy works and grows. As long as it doesn't happen too quickly and too sharply,
Or that it happens.
then there can be inflation and it's a big bust.
Right, I look at it like, if it's happening in one area and it's working, okay, if everybody were to do it all at once, that'd be great, but if they don't, then, if it doesn't happen on the national, and we had tried to do it in the state, because they've made this law, anyway, they make a law that we can't raise the wage.
Right.
So I just think, well, when I go around in the world and I see that there are small businesses that are trying to start up, okay? What would be great is to give small businesses that are trying to start up a bit of a break, so that startups, entrepreneurial things, people that are running great big businesses where they've got over 50, 100 employees, and they're making plenty of profit, off of the stuff they're doing. I just feel like we've got to take some looks at how do we do it. Can we do it incrementally? Say that all the entrepreneurs on Wealthy Street have a break for a year until everybody else has been getting paid 15 for a while?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what that would look like. But it's funny, we're talking about women and we are all over the map. Because what I said to you is they're all women's issues.
Yep. All issues are women's issues. It's humanity's issues. I mean, we can't live in a society until everybody is treated equal.
If we don't take care of the mamas, we're
I
pretty
did
much
want
in
to
trouble.
talk a little bit more, though, on the march this Saturday.
Yeah.
Did you have some information on it, Ann, that you wanted to
I don't
talk
have
about?
any information on the march. You have the information on the march. But
Okay.
I have just a couple
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let's hear your
information on some
announcements.
events. Tomorrow at IGE, which is Institute for Global Education, there is going to be a talk about anti-racist and social justice in K through 12 education.
Cool.
And I guess we found out that we really need this. You heard about it was the football game at the beginning of the season at the high school. Remember Forest Hills Central came in.
With the big Trump sign.
They played Ottawa with a Betsy Ross sign.
Betsy Ross flag, no less.
Betsy
yes.
Ross flag and a Betsy Ross
Make
flag.
America great.
And the Trump, and it was just a very insensitive thing to do. And so this kind of, I guess this anti-racist and social justice is needed in our case.
And
In
Betsy,
K through 12, no doubt.
Betsy DeVos actually, Betty DeVos.
Betsy, yeah.
Betsy. She is anti-LGBTQ as well. And so she is one of those that are therapy treatment type people. And if she wants that to happen in our schools, that's going to be rough as well.
I just picture no public schools left if she gets confirmed.
Agreed.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I think the thing is that, when we get our fears going, I also feel like, we have to be the ones that make them do it, I mean, we got to show up, because those are our fears. We have to create conversation and keep that conversation spreading.
So I want to, because we're getting close to time.
Okay.
The March on Washington, Saturday, 10 a.m., Washington, D.C. It's the day after Trump's inauguration. It's going to be 10 a.m. in Washington, D.C., but also Fountain Street Church is going to do one at 10 a.m. They're doing one in the Lansing State Capitol at 1 p.m. There's a lot of things you can do to find out what you can do without having to go to Washington, because I think it's going to be really crowded. They say only 200,000 people are going, but I think it's going to be a lot more than that.
It could be a lot more than that, yeah.
The Women's March is actually caught on overseas.
It has.
We have a lot of them going on simultaneously.
In Tokyo.
In Europe.
In 1913, they had
Yep.
the women's suffrage procession, but it was for Woodrow Wilson's inauguration because women wanted the vote. Remember, guys, women have not even been voting for 100 years yet. They marched, only 8,000 of them made it, but they had people all over the world too there with them.
Exactly,
Yes.
and because if in those days, 8,000 people to show up was like phenomenal.
Yeah, they were hitchhiking, backpacking, like
Yeah, they were
and this was
subjected
in
to
March.
violence and arrest and.
Yes.
Yeah, this was.
They were beaten a lot. There were over 100 people hospitalized. A couple people were killed. It was really nasty. And then this was in 1913, and of course it took it 7 more years until we could vote for the 19th Amendment. So this is our turn again, our generation's turn to vote in Washington, or to march in Washington, to make women heard again, so that we can finally get those rights that we've been trying for since the beginning of time,
Right.
or at least the beginning of the United States, where they like us being oppressed, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Let's not ask for respect. Let's demand.
But if you can't make it, you can donate gas money. You can make posters. There's a website. I wrote it down somewhere. www.womensmarch.com/sisters will show you all the other sister marches in around the country.
And you
So-
don't have to be a woman to show up.
No,
That's
there are
right.
tons of men going. It's just support of men and women. This is CTV. We're here the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. live. We have our reruns at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. And I want to thank these beautiful women for being on the show. Lily Beardsley, Martha Cooper, Ann Schweitzer. Great issues, guys. Thank you very much.
Well, it needs to be. It's too bad we're still talking, but. And I'm glad to see one who will carry the torch for the sisters in the future. I've been joking. We can't. Us activists can't die until we replace ourselves.
Exactly.
A movement is something that takes time and generations. It's difficult because it seems so obvious.
In harder times is when we call for desperation, and we had a few years there where things seemed a little smooth, so we let it fall to the wayside, and we forgot that we still need to fight. We can't. Even though we're swimming, instead of drowning, we're still swimming. We're not on the shore yet. We're not free.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, we have so much fresh water here in Michigan, especially in West Michigan. Why aren't businesses